Any Council-aligned vessel please respond. We are under siege. Coordinates embedded. The voice crackled with static and blood. No one knew who first sent it. The message bounced across relay stations, igniting old protocols. Civilizations, once confident in their borders, now paused. Because whatever had terrified the Verax sent them running from a fortified moon. That wasn't normal, but the real mistake wasn't in their call for help. It was who answered. What do you mean the responding ship isn't Council-affiliated? Archscribe Tyrekel's mandibles clicked with unease. His third eye fluttered. Toward the holodisplay, a black void with only a single icon approaching. No insignia, no registry, no transponder, just a name. 2 words, Red Harvest. Probably scavengers, his adjutant hissed. Or worse, mercenaries. Tyor leaned forward. The display shimmered, and the ship's silhouette bloomed into view. It didn't look like anything built under the Accord. Sharp angles, unpainted metal, hull scoring from multiple plasma types. The engines pulsed with a rhythm that felt more like a heartbeat than propulsion. Then came the transmission. No image, no voice, just a text string. Emergency acknowledged, clearing perimeter. There was no request for confirmation. No diplomatic tone. No signature from any species the Accord recognized. And for the first time in Tyr's long political career, he felt cold. On the ground, survivors from the Verax moon clung to trenches melted half a meter deep. The attackers, shadow beasts from a rogue hive fleet, were adapting faster than expected. Their leader, Captain Yorva, barely had time to react when the sky screamed. One of his sub-commanders looked up. That's not one of ours. The cloud split with a low hum, not thunder. Not plasma. Something worse. A black shape drifted down like a falling omen. No lights, no warnings. It didn't hover. It started. And then it began. Not with gunfire. Not with speeches. With silence. Orbit side, Tyr's voice cracked. They're firing on everything. The Red Harvest didn't target just the invaders. It incinerated the battlefield. Used kinetic rods so fast the sound came after the destruction. One impact vaporized an entire hill where alien reinforcements had landed moments earlier. Then came the drone's silent, matte black orbs that drifted low and detonated in perfect, geometric patterns. Precision wasn't mercy. And when the survivors screamed, no one answered. The Red Harvest didn't acknowledge friend from foe, only threat from target. Tyr staggered back from the display. They were supposed to help us. The adjutant's voice was barely audible. They did. Later, when the field was nothing but glass and scorched shadow, a final message arrived. One line. Do not mistake Earth's silence for absence. Tyr stared at it. And that was before Earth even responded. The smoke hadn't settled. It didn't even drift. It clung, thick and metallic, to every surface like a second skin. Captain Yorva coughed inside his rebreather, stepping carefully across the scorched trench line. A drone half-melted, still hissing lay beside. A pile of fused armor that might have once been his lieutenant. No flags, no insignia. Just black glass and shadow. They're gone, someone whispered behind him. Yorva didn't answer. He watched the sky instead. The Red Harvest still hovered above them, unmoving, unblinking, silent. Is it over? His comms officer asked. And that was the wrong question, because Earth never answers in words. High above, in orbit's void, the Red Harvest ran silent. Its weapons bay no longer glowed. Its hull no longer shimmered with heat. But inside, Commander May Islington was speaking to someone. Or something. Confirm anomaly pattern. No civilian tags. No sovereign claim. Threat? Matrix? A pause. Then, threat matrix incomplete. Human casualties 0. Civilian 0. Reassessment. Infiltration probable. May didn't blink. Deploy the Echo Protocol. A second pause. Then the lights dimmed inside the ship, and beneath the red harvest, the ground moved. Captain Yorva barely had time to stabilize his legs before the tremor hit. The black glass cracked, splitting like an old wound. From beneath it, thin silver rods rose no larger than bones. They pulsed once with a low hum, and then whispers. Not sound, not words, just memory. A soldier dropped. His rifle, screamed, fell to his knees and clawed at his own face. Make it stop. They're inside, Yorva turned. Get him out of here. But as his squad rushed forward, more of them began to freeze. Shudder. The whispering wasn't in the air. It was inside them. What did we call? The comms officer muttered, Yorva. Looked up at the red harvest and realized too late. It hadn't fired on them out of malice. It had fired because it recognized something here, something not supposed to exist, and Earth was verifying contamination. In the council chamber orbiting Sector Korthos, the emergency broadcast silenced the floor. Unknown Terran protocol detected. Echo pattern confirmed. One of the ministers choked. But that protocol, it's theoretical. It only activates when Earth believes the infection has spread. Yorva dropped to one knee, his claws digging into the ground as the whispering sharpened into something else. Clarity. The battlefield had never been the target. It was the signal. Earth silence. Wasn't punishment. It was a scan. And now it was sure. A line of Terran drones formed a perfect circle around the remaining survivors. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten. One lit up with a soft red glow. Quarantine protocol. Stand by, Yorva whispered. Please, we're not the enemy. The drone's reply was gentle, almost kind. If you weren't, you'd already be gone. And still, the red harvest didn't move, because this wasn't retaliation. This was just Phase 2. It was one word. Just one. Broadcast from the red harvest, spoken in a tone so neutral it chilled the bone marrow of every species who heard it. Confirmed? That was all. But it rang like a sentence. Like a verdict, and to the Galactic Council, it might as well have been a declaration of extinction. In the grand spire of the Solari, High Order Velith's feathers were already molting in stress. He watched the playback on loop. The way the Terran ship waited, the way it scanned, the way it didn't fire until after the infected began to scream. What exactly did they confirm? He demanded. The analyst didn't look up. Cognitive parasite, perhaps? Or a weapon of belief. The humans call it mimetic breach. Meaning? Meaning, the analyst swallowed. It's not physical. It's a thought, a pattern, a signal that infects how you think. Silence. Then Velith asked the only question that mattered. Can it spread? To us? The analyst didn't answer. And that, more than anything, was his answer. Back on the moon, Captain Yorva trembled as the heat from the drone ring intensified. The air shimmered. One of the drones had split open. No weapon, no core, just a black orb rising from its center. The orb pulsed once. This is Earth. Quarantine has failed. New directive initiated. The voice wasn't human, not synthetic either. It sounded like a dream remembering war. Yorva took a step forward, his voice ragged. Wait, let us explain. The orb rotated. Your speech patterns match known contaminant distortions. One of the soldiers shouted from behind. We were trying to help. We sent a distress signal, that's all. Another pulse. Then you did, and it reached us. That was your final mistake. Yorva looked to the sky, blinking against the light of the unmoving Terran ship. What do you even want? The orb hummed once. Then gave Earth's only real answer. Containment. On the other side of the galaxy, in a research facility buried under the ice oceans of Glaner, a private archive opened for the first time in centuries. A redacted Terran dossier blinked onto the screen. Project Lamed status. Sealed trigger phrase. Memetic contagion confirmed. Action. Mobilize without announcement. Initiate preemptive silencing. Do not attempt contact. Do not broadcast sympathy. Earth will not respond. The AI reading it paused. And for the first time in its operational life, it hesitated. Meanwhile, the Red Harvest finally moved, not to leave, not to fire again, but to deploy something no one expected, a transmission. Relay. One single message, bouncing outward across frequencies, languages, and protocols. It read, request, stand down. Earth is already en route. The galaxy blinked, froze, and then screamed, because the Red Harvest wasn't the first wave. It was the confirmation team. No one aboard the Red Harvest celebrated. No cheers, no military fanfare. In fact, no one aboard moved at all. Because there was no crew. Just systems, protocols, and one directive hard-coded into its heart. Speak only when certainty exceeds consequence. And now, it was certain. Captain Yorva didn't sleep. Couldn't. The tremors in his claws hadn't stopped. Around him, the survivors muttered half-thought some praying, others whispering apologies to ancestors that wouldn't answer. The drones hadn't moved. The ring still pulsed red, a circle that didn't trap them. It studied them. Every breath, every twitch, every moment of indecision was logged, measured. Until finally, the ring broke. Not with light, not with sound, but with a quiet drop in temperature. Is it over? Someone asked. Yorva didn't answer, because something else had appeared above them. A second vessel, smaller, sleeker. It didn't descend like a warship. It drifted like a shadow. Its hull shimmered with matte black alloy, absorbing the weak light of the burnt moon. And it bore no name. On board the Red Harvest, a signal was handed off, seamlessly. The second vessel received it and locked onto 3 targets, not threats. Witnesses. Inside its mind, if it could be called that, a script activated. A voice began to form. One single phrase, spoken in every language ever heard across the stars. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even loud. It was a notification. This area is now under Terran containment. Evacuation is denied. At the edge of known space, the Sarikian Empire's Third Watch intercepted the message. Their admiral, a crystalline being of pure logic, studied the waveform. Containment? That term implies infection. A lower officer nodded. Or, worse, assimilation. The admiral's tone dropped like shattered glass. Prepare interdiction fleets. If Earth is spreading something, no, another officer interrupted. You don't stop Earth by confronting it. You stop it by never giving it reason. The room fell silent. Because deep down, they all knew Earth doesn't threaten, it observes. Until a DOESN single quotes T. Back on the moon, the sleek ship lowered further. Its presence changed gravity. Light bent differently. Soldiers began weeping without knowing why, and then, without warning, 3 survivors were chosen. Beams of thin blue light scanned their skulls, not their weapons, not their armor. Their thoughts. Yorva stood among them. What are you looking for? He hissed. The light responded not with words, but by showing him a flash, a memory he didn't own, a Terran colony, long ago, silent, peaceful, until something spread an idea. A virus of belief that rewrote behavior. Families turning on each other, cities falling in hours, and Earth had to burn it out. They never let it spread again. Yorva collapsed, trembling. Not because of what he saw, but because Part of him agreed. And that, more than anything, made him dangerous. Above, the red harvest dimmed. Its final act was complete. It never fired again, never moved, never sent another message. It simply stayed. A monument. To silence. To warning. To what happens when Deathworlders answer the wrong way. The drones didn't leave. They simply dimmed. Each one folding back into the earth with mechanical grace, vanishing like they'd never been, except for the three. Yo single quotes va Nell and Strack. They stood alone, their bodies numb, their thoughts tangled in memory loops Earth had given them, and the ship above remained silent. Not because it had nothing to say, but because it no longer needed to. Where are we going? Strack whispered. His voice cracked, thin as paper. No one answered. They were already airborne, lifted into the belly of the smaller Terran craft. No restraints, no threats, just humming silence and a cold metal floor that somehow felt like judgment. A screen lit in front of them. No buttons, no interface. Just words. You were not the infection, but you breathed it. Yorva's claws curled. So what now? The next line arrived with surgical clarity. Now we learn what you became. Orbiting high over neutral space, the ship docked with an impossible construct. Black, hexagonal, invisible until it wished otherwise. A Terran listening array. No species had ever mapped it. No diplomat had been allowed to see it, because it wasn't a station. It was a lens for watching minds. Inside, no walls existed, just light, a formless environment that responded to thought. When Yorva blinked, it shifted into a forest. When Strack sobbed, it became water. And when Nellen tried to remember her mate's face, the room turned pitch black. Why are they doing this? She asked. A voice, not a voice, a presence answered, because remembering is how it spreads. Yorva stepped forward. We didn't ask for this. We sent a call for help. The presence paused, and you were answered. But help is not always rescue. Sometimes it's removal. Elsewhere, in a hidden Terran archive 2 systems away, a unit. Kino 17 watched the data stream. Psychological profiles, language patterns, micromuscle fluctuations. It wasn't looking for guilt. It was looking for replication. Signs that the thought contagion had seeded a copy of itself in behavior. Even doubt could be proof. Even hope. And that was what made humans terrifying. They knew which emotions to fear. Not rage, not hate, but compassion for the wrong things. Back in the construct, Strack dropped to his knees. We didn't become it. We fought it. I buried my own brother to stop it from reaching the signal tower. Yorva tried to hold him. Nellen didn't move. The screen lit again. Understood. You may leave. What? Yorva blinked. You're letting us go? But no door opened. No ship came. Only one final line appeared. You are no longer the subject. You are the signal. And just like that, the room disappeared. The 3 of them found themselves back on their homeworld. No one saw them arrive. No ship left the sky. But every screen flickered once as they opened their eyes. And far above, the red harvest moved. Just an inch. Just enough to remind them they weren't alone. They were being watched. Forever. The chamber pulsed with tension. 7 species sat in a crescent of gold-lit thrones. The Grand Assembly, the oldest diplomatic authority in the galaxy. And not one of them could speak without trembling. The footage had been reviewed dozens of times. The moon, the drones. The survivors returned without explanation. And most damning of all, the broadcast. You are no longer the subject. You are the signal. Some thought it poetry, others prophecy. But all agreed on one thing. Earth was no longer a participant. It was a judge. This is madness, rasped Chancellor Drovin of the Kaptari Clade. His eyes were mirrors reflecting static. "We must act immediately. If not now, when?" "The humans haven't attacked us," countered Minister Veleth of the Theron. "They've made no demands, issued no threats. We risk provoking what we don't understand." An aged senator from the Collective stood. "We have always led with diplomacy, even toward Deathworlds. This would shatter that legacy." But Droven slammed a claw down, cracking the metal. "Legacy dies with the dead." Then he pointed to the motion light blinking red. "Proposal. Declare Earth an uncontained hostile entity. Sanctions, surveillance, interdiction." The vote began, but Earth had already tallied the outcome. Because Earth didn't monitor the Council's votes. It monitored their intention. Even before the final hand was raised, every Terran Sentinel AI had already shifted from passive to predictive mode. Satellites blinked awake. Black archives unsealed. And somewhere in the asteroid cloud of Orion V, a dormant ship reactivated. One older than any Earthborn vessel seen in centuries. Cody name: OBOLISK. Not a warship. Not a scout. A listener. A closer. Back in the chamber. The vote finished. 4 in favor, 2 against. 1 abstained. The motion passed. But the moment the tally was recorded, the lights died. Not a blackout. A silencing. Every system, every failsafe, every diplomatic firewall went dead. A single phrase appeared on the holotable, carved not in light but absence. "Judged." Gasps echoed. Screeches. A few tried to flee. Then something impossible happened. The moon above the chamber, the symbolic core of neutral territory, cracked. Not bombed. Not attacked. Crumpled. As if its atoms forgot how to hold shape. Minister Veleth turned slowly, her voice barely a whisper. What did we just start?" An answer came. Not from Earth. Not from a ship. From the room itself, the marble beneath. Their feet hummed. Symbols emerged, Terran runes, ancient and quiet, and the message read, "You do not start wars with Earth. You end them." Light returned. The vote record disappeared. The proposal was wiped from history. And the abstaining species. The lone voice that refused the motion was gone. Not destroyed. Erased. No one remembered their name. No monument bore their shape. Only a blank seat remained. Because Earth didn't retaliate. It recalibrated reality. There was no alert. No radar ping. No warp signature. No gravity shift. And yet, when Admiral Krylos stepped outside his observation tower above Zarin Prime, it was there, a black monolith suspended over the skyline, motionless, silent, stretching far longer than it should. Impossible in mass, unmeasurable in form. It had no engines, no visible weapons, no markings. Just one line etched along its lower hull. Witnesses must be watched. Half a galaxy away, over the core spires of the K'tari capital, the same shape hovered. At first they assumed projection or mimicry, but time signatures didn't match because they weren't copies. They were instances. The obelisk had not arrived. It had always been there, buried inside the idea of observation, hidden within the assumption that you could look at Earth. Without Earth looking back. Inside the Terran memory core on the Mars relay ring, a technician sat frozen. Her screen pulsed with 10,000 incoming queries from confused alien systems, each one trying to scan the obelisk. Ping it. Understand it. Each one received the same return value. Yes. Nothing more. No frequency. No errors. Just yes. What does that even mean? She whispered. The AI next to her replied without emotion. They asked if it was real. We answered. In the skies of Nderun Vai, panic ignited like wildfire. Civilian transports scrambled. Local defense grids booted up. And still, The obelisk remained unmoving, unarmed, undeniable. One broadcast was sent from a military outpost. We demand. A response. What are your terms? The reply arrived as a voice not digital, not radio. Whispered directly into every officer's mind. Terms were already offered. You voted against them. In a darkened corridor beneath the council's deepest vault, Chancellor Droven stood alone. He had voted for sanction, for containment. And now, Earth had contained them. The lights flickered. And behind him, a low hum vibrated through the air. He turned. The obelisk, in miniature. Standing silently in the hallway, he fell to his knees. I rescind my vote, the air shimmered. And from nowhere a child's voice answered, Votes are not undone, they are remembered. Then the obelisk faded. Not with sound, not with light, with absence. As if it was never there, but Droven could still feel it. In his breath, in his teeth, in the moments between thoughts, the shape that would not leave. Every empire, every council, every corner of known space now bore an Amdo obelisk above its capital. Watching. Not threatening. Just being. And across Terran frequencies, one unified message pulsed once per cycle. Do not engage. The observation is not complete. And somewhere, in the void behind voids, the original obelisk floated quietly. Not a weapon, a verdict. Vakari space had vanished, not destroyed, not conquered. Just missing, coordinates corrupted, stellar maps rewritten. Even the galactic archives showed blank sectors, as if their systems had never existed, because that's what the Vakari had done. They scrubbed themselves from history, from trade, from every alliance and archive. The High Synod had called it strategic dissolution. But the humans had another. Word. Cowardice. In a shattered relay hub on the edge of neutral space, a forgotten probe reactivated. Its last signal, before it fried itself to ash, read, Signal detected. Source, Memory Echo. That was all Earth needed. Because Earth didn't rely on maps. It used regret. On the sixth moon of Vakari's hidden refuge, children played beneath the false sun. The sky above was engineered calm, serene, protective. But then, one day, it changed. A single black line appeared across the sky, not moving, not fading. Just there. Unblinking. Later, the elders would swear it was meaningless, just sensor failure. A glitch. But then came the second sign, the dreams. Vakari citizens began to remember things that had never happened. A voice saying, You were warned. A stone ship falling through an artificial ocean. A council voting against something they never knew existed. And most chilling of all memories of a Terran, standing in silence, watching. Just watching. The High Synod Council met in secret. Their leader, Jackson Wren, hissed through his frilled mandibles. We erased the records. We scrubbed the timelines. Earth cannot follow what no longer exists. An advisor trembled. But what if Earth doesn't follow records? What else could it follow? A whisper echoed from the chamber's edge. No one had entered. No sensors triggered. And yet, a voice answered, Shame. Every light in the room flickered. And on the central display, the official seal of the Vakari Synod was overwritten by a single glyph, Terran, meaning judged but not witnessed. The worst category. The next morning, across all of Vakari's hidden colonies, memory itself collapsed. Not on fire, not in war, but in truth. Entire cities remembered histories that never occurred. Monuments emerged from the ground with Terran inscriptions. Elders began reciting human poetry in dead Vakari dialects. The children? They began drawing Earth's moon. Perfectly. Without knowing what it was. On the 11th day, a ship appeared, not in orbit, not on approach, but in reflection. Pools, windows, eyes. Wherever one looked, they saw it hanging in space, ancient and black, the obelisk. And from every reflective surface, a phrase spoke. You can hide from maps, not from memory. By the 14th day, the Vicari had one option left. Surrender? No. You can't surrender to an idea. You endure it. If you can doubt, it was called Shardmine-7. A living algorithm housed in obsidian alloy. Built by the Zhelt Imperium. Forged not for diplomacy. Not for invasion, but for penetration. Its design was flawless. It could phase through data nets, map threat matrices in nanoseconds, override planetary eyes. It had infiltrated war kings, toppled civilizations from orbit. It had never been touched. Until Earth launched Shardmind, ordered Strategos Vey across the throne comm. No message, no warning. And it was done. In less than 4 blinks, the weapon vanished into folded space. Its path? Earth's deep vaults. Its objective? Extract Terran protocols. Is it failsafe? Auto-deletion after 66 seconds. But at second 3, the failsafe failed. At second 6, it stopped transmitting. And at second 11, Shardmine-7 sent back a message. But not in Gelsian code. In English. I see it. At first, the strategists cheered. It meant the infiltration succeeded. Then a second message came. I shouldn't. Then silence. In the 88th second, far beyond its designed lifespan, Shardmind returned. Not through Gelsian relays. Not through war-tunnels. It arrived, physically, hovering above the Imperiums. Sky-forged. Twisting, cracking, emitting sounds. Not mechanical. Not digital. Sobs. Like a child's first breath in reverse. They brought it inside. What was left of it? A shell of alloy and melted logic crystal, but its core was intact. And it spoke. Not words. Images. A Terran child smiling in silence. An ocean that spoke without waves. A planet that had no defenses but infinite eyes. A single phrase carved into the inside of its own skull. We do not kill what we do not understand, but we will show it. Then the sobbing stopped, and the screaming began. A scream that infected circuits, drove nearby synthetics into recursive suicide. A scream shaped like a question. How can silence be louder than war? The Zhelt tore it apart, atomized its remains, burned its backup data, but it didn't matter. Because on every Zhelt ship across 1,000 sectors, a new alert began. Flashing, you've been seen. Back on Earth, inside an observatory buried beneath miles of ice, 2 Terran technicians watched it happen in real time. One turned to the other. He lasted longer than the others. The second nodded, barely. Then silence. Until the lights above them flickered. Once. Not from power. From agreement. The obelisk had heard the scream, and Earth had made its decision. For the first time in 83 standard cycles, no signal came from Earth. No pulses, no pings, no glyphs written across suns. The obelisks vanished overnight, one by one, from orbit, from memory, from reality. A collective breath swept across empires. They're gone, someone whispered in a war chamber. It's over, said a trader on a fringe moon. And for a moment, just a flicker, hope returned. That Earth had turned inward. That they'd said their piece. That maybe? The stars could resume as they were. But in a children's song on a border world, a new verse appeared. When no one remembered teaching, we looked where we shouldn't. They saw what we are. Now, we sleep in their silence, beneath Earth's watching star. It was catchy, even beautiful, until linguists ran pattern analysis and found it was written in Terran command. Encryption level IX. No child should know that. Then came the forgetting. Not gradual. Not gentle. System by system, small things began to vanish. Names, coordinates, symbols on flags. Entire wars wiped from record. One admiral screamed in the middle of a summit. Who were we fighting last decade? I can't remember. Silence. No. One could. Because Earth didn't just want to be seen. It wanted clarity. And everything else was noisy. In a hidden vault beneath the ruins of an ancient observatory, one surviving counselor found a message. It wasn't glowing, or encrypted, or sung into dreams. Just scratched by hand into the wall. Thank you for watching. We are done. He fell to his knees. Is this peace? He whispered. No reply came, but in the quiet he realized the truth. Earth had not left. It had finished. Whatever calculus it had been running, whatever judgment it had rendered, the process was complete. And the signal? It hadn't ended in silence. It had ended in transmission. The entire galaxy now bore Earth's signature. Not in fear, not in chains. In remembrance. Back on Earth, beneath the Pacific Trench, a deep AI pulsed once, then dimmed. Its work was done. Across one last darkened console, a single line of code remained glowing. #OBELISK. Completed. True, then, even that faded. Not with triumph. Not with fury. With rest.